Right now, clinical trials are testing some of the most powerful weight loss drugs ever created. One study on cagrilima showed participants losing up to 25% of their body weight. That's even more than Ozempic or Wegovy. Other trials are exploring next-gen drugs like Retatrutide and orforglipron, which could reshape how we treat obesity in the future. And here's the wild part. You could be part of these studies, often for free, with medical supervision and even compensation. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to find weight loss clinical trials near you, step by step, plus how to join our free newsletter so you can learn more about participating in clinical trials. As a disclaimer, this video is for informational purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before joining any clinical trial. Before we get into how to search for clinical trials near you, we should briefly cover what is a clinical trial and some of the reasons why you might consider joining. First off, new medications require testing in order for them to be approved by the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration here in the United States. By participating in a clinical trial, patients are able to help advance medical research by providing the data and information needed to gain FDA approval, such as whether the medication is safe and how well it works compared to other medications that are readily available. So why should you join a clinical trial? Well, there are different reasons to join a clinical trial. One of the biggest reasons is to help advance medicine and healthcare for patients who need new and different medications. Another reason is that you can potentially get access to cutting-edge treatments that are not available to everyone yet, as they are still being tested. So if we use weight loss as an example, by participating in a clinical trial for weight loss, you are giving researchers valuable insights into the way these medications work in humans. These are new cutting-edge treatments that are not available yet by prescription or over-the-counter. Since you're taking new medications, there is also close medical monitoring from the clinical research team. You may have blood work, physicals, and sometimes imaging at no cost to you depending on the clinical trial and what it is testing. And there may also be compensation for your time depending on the clinical trial, although this should not be your main motivator. For some, clinical research may be their last hope as their condition might not have a cure or a treatment already available to them, or they have already exhausted every medication that has been prescribed to them without success. Of course, there's a lot more to clinical research, which is the purpose of our YouTube channel and website. So I suggest you subscribe and join our newsletter for more information over at ClinicalTrials.gov. Now that we have briefly covered what clinical trials are and some of the reasons why you should participate, let's go over how to find clinical trials in your area. ClinicalTrials.gov is the largest public database of ongoing and upcoming clinical trials worldwide. It is maintained by the U.S. National Library of Medicine, and it is totally free and updated regularly. So let's go over to ClinicalTrials.gov. Once we're at the site, it is going to have a search form for us here where it says focus your search. So we're going to go ahead and type, in this case, weight loss. You can type other terms, interventional or treatment, or location. I suggest you go to location next, and you can type in your current location, or you can just type in the United States in this example. Of course, if you want it to be near you, you're going to type in your city or your zip code. But this is just a general example for the video of what kind of clinical trials you can expect depending on your area. For study status, of course, we're going to want studies that are currently recruiting. So go ahead and click the second option saying recruiting and not yet recruiting studies. Once you have done that, we're going to go ahead and click on search. And off to the left-hand side, you can see that you can still continue to focus your search if you would like to, which is very convenient. But what we're going to do here under study status is that we're going to go for only the recruiting studies. So we're going to get rid of not yet recruiting. These are studies that haven't started yet, and we're not really sure when they're going to start. It might let you know the starting date once we start looking through the details, but for now, we're just going to focus on the ones that are actively looking for patients. We're going to go ahead and put apply filters, and there we have it. We're going to have a long list of studies. Since I have it narrowed down to the United States, there's going to be a very big list, 151 studies for the United States. Of course, you can narrow it down to where you live, and that's going to give you different options. Something else that is super interesting is that clinical trials not only deal with medications and treatments such as injections like Ozempic and things that you might be familiar with, but they also have other forms of treatment or therapy such as different applications you're trying or different devices. So that's something that's super interesting, and that is called the study type. So you guys can narrow it down for that by hitting interventional, which is going to be some type of medication or a device, something that's going to intervene with what you're doing in order to get you the result that you're looking for, in this case, weight loss. Observational is just watching. So you might want to be in a patient registry because you can help other people with your condition. They can ask you questions about how your condition is progressing or what is going on with your condition depending on different factors. And they can take that information and create different studies in the future. So this is if you want to help out without having to take medications. For now, we're going to go to interventional and we're going to apply filters. And that reduces us to still 130 studies in the United States. So there's an application that comes up right away, Brainwave Weight Loss App. And there's other things for young adults here, behavioral weight loss for cancer survivors. So there's things that are very targeted. And here it seems that there is a medication, venture oral dosing. So let's say that we're looking for a medication that could potentially help us lose weight. This is one that I'm going to go ahead and click on. And we can go ahead and talk about some of the biggest parts that you might find helpful in the website. For example, these first few letters might not make any sense to you. It's a code. This is just the name of the medication that they're using as of now, since it is not yet approved. It doesn't have a nice fancy name to it. Weight management phase 2, venture oral dosing. The phase of the study, it just means how far along the study has already progressed. Phase 1 is first in humans. Phase 2 is now that they establish it is safe to use in humans, you can look at how effective the medication actually is. We have a guide on our website, theclinicalresearcher.gov, if you're curious about the different phases of clinical trials, which I think are important if you want to participate in clinical trials, that you understand what each phase means and which phase of a clinical trial you actually want to participate in. If we scroll down, we're going to go to study overview, and this is going to give you a generalized idea of how long you're going to be expected to be in the clinical trial. If you decide to pursue this and you want to stay in the trial completely, then it is going to be a 13-week randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, parallel-arm dose-finding study. Basically, the gist of it is that it is going to take you 13 weeks to complete this study. Double-blind, neither you or the study staff that is seeing you at the site is going to know whether you're taking the placebo or not. And then it tells us who they're looking for. For participants who are adults and they are obese, obesity being defined here as a BMI of greater than 30, or who are overweight, which is a BMI of greater than 27, with at least one weight-related comorbid condition. So, something that we need to look at now, before we waste our time and start contacting the site, we should just take a peek at what some of the inclusion and exclusion criteria are. So if we scroll all the way down to participation criteria, it's going to give you a long list of things that they are looking for. Eligibility criteria is going to be broken down in inclusion, which are the things that are going to help you qualify for the study, and exclusion, things that if you have them, there's a possibility you might not be able to enroll into the study. Again, all of these things can vary, and if you don't understand them, the best thing you can do is contact the site anyways, because there might be a different reason why you do qualify, even though it might not be on here. They can go ahead and ask the sponsor, which is basically the pharmaceutical company that created the medication or the trial, or they might have other trials that are similar that you can potentially participate in. So I wouldn't say that you feel that you're disqualified and give up on this. I would still call the site. However, it is good to have an idea of what they're looking for so that you can be a little bit more confident when you contact the site. So inclusion criteria for this one, for example, they want you to be at least 18 years or older. And they have the body mass index here again, the BMI, which we talked about before. However, the comorbid condition is going to be the list here. So anything that has to do with hypertension, dyslipidemia, obstructive sleep apnea, or cardiovascular disease. You can also calculate the BMI at the screening visit, which is going to be your first visit when you go over to the site. So of course, you can have your own calculation already. There's calculators online, and I can even link to it so you know ahead of time what your BMI is and if you can even qualify for the study. For example, if your BMI is way lower than this, then you're not going to qualify, right? But they are going to do their own measurements once you get to the site to make sure that you qualify. And then exclusion. This is a longer list, 7 different things that you can't have if you want to participate in this study. The reason that they do this is because it has to be done for your safety. For example, if you have history of something that might interfere with this medication, they don't want you to participate in the study. It might not be safe for you to. Or if you don't fit the criteria. For example, if you are able to lose weight on your own, then this medication might not be targeted for you. It might be targeted for people who are having a difficult time losing weight, even after trying to lose weight by exercising or by eating right in a healthy, balanced diet. For example, on this one, if you have current or past diagnosis of diabetes, you can't qualify for this. That's because there's a lot of other things that are at play if you are diabetic, and they have other trials for that. They have medications that they're looking into in order to control your sugar levels, control your diabetes, and also increase the ability to burn weight and create that weight loss effect. That's why a lot of these are separated. You might look at other ones that only want people with diabetes. You might see other parameters that involve you going to get your blood work done. And if that is the case, this is going to happen at that first visit that you go to, at the screening visit. Once you give them consent, once you have talked to your doctor, understood everything, and are ready to participate in the study, they're going to be doing that for you at no cost to you. For the most part, right? I can't guarantee anything, but that's usually how it happens. They're going to go ahead and do your blood work and see if you qualify. So they'll give you a call later on, and they might tell you, hey, unfortunately, your levels are too high, they're too low, and you might not be able to participate in this study. Or they might go ahead and schedule that next appointment, which sometimes, or a lot of times, it might be the randomization appointment where you actually get the medication. So on your first visit, you can expect to go through the inclusion, exclusion, ask all the questions that you have, and give them the consent to participate in the study. In that same visit or the next visit, they might do all of your screening procedures. In this case, it seems that they're going to do blood work. They're going to check your BMI. There's probably a lot of other questions they're going to ask you about depending on their protocols, which is just the rules of the study. After that, you might come back for a second appointment or a third appointment where they're actually going to give you the medication if you do qualify after they have the results of everything back. And then there's going to be a long list of different study visits throughout the duration of the study period. So that's how that works. Of course, I'm sorry if I'm giving you too much information at once. I hope that this is helpful. They do have a lot of other information on here that might not make a lot of sense to you. I'll make other videos so that you guys can stay informed and know what it's like to participate in a clinical trial before you even walk in that door. But for now, just know that those are the most important sections. After that, once you have determined that you would potentially like to participate in this trial, you have talked to your doctor, and you're ready to give the clinical trial site a phone call, we go here to contacts and locations. You can find it on the left-hand side, or you can just keep scrolling until you get to it. And this study currently has 15 locations that they're active in. So I would look for my state here. Let's say that I live in Kentucky. This site is recruiting. So Viking clinical site number 110. That's just a site number. Every site is going to have a specific number. However, you're looking for the address and you're looking for what the site is. So in this example here, you see how they don't have a phone number. So we can see that they have a location in Kentucky. I will scroll up and they're going to have the phone numbers here. There's a study contact, which would be the first person I would call, and then a study contact backup in case that first person isn't answering, or you can email them. Sometimes it is difficult just finding how to participate into a clinical trial, even though you know that it's available, it's actively recruiting, and they make it hard for you to even find a phone number just for the clinic, right, where you can call and say, hey, I'm interested. Or they just have so many different barriers to anyone wanting to participate. So that's why we created the ClinicalTrials.gov. We have a lot of different resources, information, and you guys can always contact us if you have any questions about a trial that you might want to participate in and you can't find any information on it. Of course, we are not here to give any medical advice. That's going to be up to you, your doctor, your healthcare provider, and of course your family and yourself making that decision. But we just want to break that barrier to entry into clinical trials because I think there's a lot of people who are interested that could potentially benefit and benefit others by participating in a trial. And it can be very overwhelming just looking at this information in a more dry and quote unquote boring way. So if you want to be informed, subscribe to the channel, like the video so that more people learn about clinical trials because it's very important. And make sure that you guys go over to theclinicalresearcher.com where you can sign up for our free newsletter and learn more about clinical trials. Now, just as another example, if we come back, here's still our weight loss and also recruiting, right? But we can go ahead and type in the intervention or the treatment. For example, let's say that I know that I want a medication called Retatrutide right here. Hard name to pronounce, but we're going to go ahead and apply the filter. So boom, we see that there is a study for that medication. And if you guys want to do more research on this medication, I actually made a video about it already on this channel, so you guys can go ahead and look it up. It has incredible results already. Of course, it's still in clinical trials. It's not available out for doctors to prescribe or over the counter. But if you're interested in this medication, I've already made a video talking about some of the results from previous trials. But this is just another example of how you can look for a clinical trial if you already know the name of the medication. Again, you would look over the study details and you would go to contacts and locations. And here is an example of what I was talking about. This study actually has the phone numbers that you can contact, and it tells you the complete name of the actual research facility. That way you guys can Google it, look up more information, and call them yourselves. The principal investigator is going to be the doctor on the trial, so that person is probably not going to be answering the phone, but you can get a hold of the front desk person, which will actually help guide you into getting an appointment to come into the site, as well as maybe telling you about other clinical trial opportunities. If you don't qualify for the clinical trial you're looking into, they can potentially give you other suggestions or let you know what you can do if you still want to be involved in clinical research. And again, if you guys are looking for more information, I highly suggest you guys visit us at theclinresearcher.com. We talk about different clinical trials for specific conditions that you might be looking into, and just more information overall once you subscribe to our newsletter, which is completely free, on how to find clinical trials and what clinical trials actually are. It's in Spanish and English, so I highly suggest that you guys visit us. Go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter, and I'll see you guys on one of these videos that YouTube is recommending. Thank you so much for watching. Leave me a comment if you guys enjoyed the video, if you found this helpful,